Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Week 16, the full Week 16 preview here. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. You're probably in the semifinals in some of your fantasy leagues here. So crucial week, of course. We got to make it to Week 17. We got to make it to the finals. We are here to help you do that. And how are we going to do it? We're going to break down every single game. We're going to start things off with the Thursday nighter. Game of the week, one of the matchups of the year really going on in the NFC West. We've got the Seahawks playing host to the Rams on Thursday Night Football. The Seahawks checking in as a 1.5-point favorite in this one. The big news, of course, on the Rams side of things with Davante Adams being listed as, I believe, doubtful. Doubtful means out at a very high clip, it appears. So the Rams are going to have to make this work, sans Adams. But, I mean, there are few coaches out there that you would trust to figure things out on the fly more than Sean McVay.
Yeah, and as much as Davante Adams has been a really important part of the Rams offense this year and their general success this year, I really do think he's pretty much just like an alley-oop specialist in this offense, and it's not that hard to replace it, in my opinion, at least for one game or two games or something, and especially any game where they can run the ball. Granted, the Seahawks defense is quite good, and their front seven in particular is quite good, probably what drives the overall effectiveness of that group. But I think the reason I'm picking the Rams anyway, even without Adams, is that I think they can wear down the Seahawks defense. Like, they can play a slow game of attrition if necessary. Puka Nacua doing his standard part, the tight ends chipping in just enough. I think after enough time, you can wear down any defense, and the Rams have in this game the chance to apply that kind of pressure, because I think it's actually a really big deal that Charles Cross is out for the Seahawks, left tackle. Never really seen anybody talk about Charles Cross, but I think he's quietly very good. Definitely one of the better pass blocking tackles in the NFL. So without Charles Cross, even if Gray Zabel is very good for his own part, and even if Abraham Lucas is still pretty good at right tackle, you had a line that to begin with, in my opinion, was kind of barely keeping it together with Seattle. And I think a guy like Cross being out against a pass rush like the Rams have is a really bad development for Sam Darnold. And not to make it sound like the Seahawks can't win. They're, of course, a good team. But I think this is a weak year in the NFL, probably the weakest year in the NFL I can remember. And for a team like the Seahawks to rank as relatively high as they do is not to say, in my opinion, that they're as good as the average any other year, team that ranks in the same spot. Like, I think that whatever, second to the NFC any other year is a better team than this. And I just don't think they can lose players like Cross and still kind of keep it together. I think that's a bigger loss than Adams is for the Rams.
Yeah, Cross was one of those interesting prospects coming out because he played left tackle in an air raid system for Mike Leach at Miss State. So he had 2 million pass blocking reps. So he's pretty seasoned.
Really good athlete
in the league. Yeah. So yeah, losing him I think is tough, especially when, I think that this can be said about most quarterbacks, especially the ones that aren't so mobile. But when Sam Darnold's getting heated up, I think things can go pretty sideways. I mean, we saw that for the Vikings last year, and we've seen it in the times where, Seattle hasn't looked good this year. A lot of it has been, Darnold not doing well under pressure. I do think that the Rams will be able to generate that. So I'm not looking at a particularly huge output here from this Seahawks offense. And I do think that ultimately the Rams, even without Adams, are going to be able to do enough offensively to get it done here. I do think people are going to want to know what to make of Blake Corum for this week. Does he become flex viable for you on a short week? We kind of have him in that no man's land, sort of a mid-tier RB3 in our rankings. So that's right kind of on the border. He has obviously been playing well, but volume a difficult thing to bank on. So where would you feel comfortable rolling out with Corum this week?
Flex at most, and it's still not a play I'm trying to make. Granted, the way it's gone the past 3 weeks, maybe I need to think differently about it at this point, but generally, you don't want a target running back to play about 20 snaps a game, even if that guy is a highly, a prolific pass catcher, a short yardage touchdown type. 20 snaps is a really narrow, path to work with. And in the past couple weeks, I guess 3 weeks, I should say, Corum's been averaging 10 yards a carry or close to it and scoring a touchdown every, what is this? Every like 6-7 carries, basically. So if you need a running back to score a touchdown every 6 or 7 carries and average 10 yards a carry to come through, that's generally a standard that won't be met, even though Corum has somehow met it 3 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, it's just going to be really, really difficult to keep that up over a sustained sample. And, we could definitely see the Seahawks front, slowing things down as far as that Rams ground game is concerned. So, yeah, Corum's usable if you like absolutely need it, but you probably feel better if like you just have him on a best ball team that has advanced more so than in your redraft fantasy football playoffs. Let's scooch on over to Saturday. We got 2 games on Saturday this week. The first one starts at 5 Eastern. We've got the Eagles and the Commanders. We've got the Eagles checking in as a 6.5-point favorite. Obviously, big news out of Washington that Jaden Daniels will not return to action this year. They're shutting it down and looking ahead to 2026. So that's more Marcus Mariota. Commanders went up to East Rutherford, to the Meadowlands, and got the win last week, whereas the Eagles, that's got to be like the shortest NFL game in quite some time that the Eagles played against the Raiders. Like
it was somehow less than the regulation. It was like, where'd it go? Third quarter just didn't happen.
Yeah, the Raiders like secretly submitted some paperwork to where it's like, we get paid for playing this game, but we're only going to be out there for 2 hours. That we got to get back home. Otherwise, the jet lag is going to be too bad.
Yeah, it's like the Raiders didn't want to play. The Eagles offense doesn't really want to play with Jalen Hurts. It's just no real interest for the game to be a full length.
It was, yeah, like all the other games in that window, like if you're watching Red Zone or like late third quarter, early fourth quarter, it's like, oh yeah, the Eagles game's already done. They already just demolished what's left of the Raiders. But different story here with the Eagles.
Eagles are beat up.
They are. So would you care to detail how banged up they are?
Well, it looks like Saquon's gonna play through this stinger, but stingers are always on aggravation watch. Those can pop back up. So don't know if you're gonna get the same the standard level presence from Barkley, but even if they do, there are additional worries for the Eagles. Like Jalen Carter, I assume he's looking close to doubtful soon, or if he somehow does play, he's not going to be himself. So when Jalen Carter isn't out there, the Eagles' run defense, in my opinion, just instantly becomes pretty beatable. Like if you can knock around the backup defensive tackles, like a guy like bad Byron Young from Alabama, not a good player. He's not going to be in the rotation for the Eagles next year, but he's out there now if Carter is not. And that's, the Washington run game could get going a little bit. Mariota hasn't really derailed the offense when he's been out there. It's more just been when they need Mariota to be Daniels, he can't do that. But if they just, caretaker type role, Mariota has done that. So the run game might kind of be there. The down and distance details might be somewhat favorable for Washington, or at least more favorable than they've been against the Eagles in some number of years, probably. And the Eagles offense has concerns on the offensive line, in addition to, Lane Johnson's been out, of course, and that's been a big problem. Landon Dickerson and the backup to Lane Johnson, Fred Johnson, hadn't practiced this week either. So maybe going from Fred Johnson to a third stringer doesn't make a big difference, because I don't know. I haven't paid close attention to Fred, but I don't think I assume he's probably not very good. Landon Dickerson, though, the next guy up there is a drop off for sure.
Yeah, no question about that. So I mean, this might not be the A plus type of output from the Eagles offense that kind of ends up making last week look more like not a fluke necessarily, because I think it's totally within their realm to be able to do that to the Raiders. But at the same time, I don't think it's repeatable, even against a team that's kind of on its last legs, like Washington. So the 6.5 is a really tricky one for me to roll with the Eagles. I like them covering the big number last week, but a divisional game, I think the Commanders might want to spoil it a little bit. So, and the Commanders do oftentimes play the Eagles pretty close. So I think I'll take the points with the Commanders here. And then lastly, your thoughts on the Washington run game. You did mention, the Jalen Carter issue for the Eagles run defense, but the Commanders rushing game has been one of the more difficult things to figure out for this entire season, really.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's kind of simple. I am biased for how I see it that way, of course, but it is simple to me. Chris Rodriguez is the best running back on that team, and that doesn't matter to Cliff Kingsbury because Cliff Kingsbury likes shinier, flashier things like Ja'Cory Crosky Merritt. So whenever Chris Rodriguez starts a game, which he had been up until his most recent injury last week, Rodriguez, of course, automatic, almost always, just straight automatic. And no matter what, no matter how well he produces in the first half, Cliff Kingsbury just does not use him in the second half. I don't doubt that there's some ostensible reason for this, but it's a stupid reason. It's a kind of thing that a person thinks of when they're just fundamentally unserious, which Cliff Kingsbury is. But Ja'Cory Crosky Merritt is obviously capable of some things. I think he is kind of wild and unreliable. He's a fumbler. He doesn't have any kind of like consistent rhythm to the way that he works. He kind of just kind of freaks out and tries to tries to kind of just bounce his way through things blindly. And against the Giants, that works because the Giants' run defense is trash. And he got going a little bit off tackle against the Chargers. But other than those two small samples, and we're talking something like 60 snaps out of 340, those other 280 snaps, Crosky Merritt has basically been a zero. And I don't know why Cliff Kingsbury doesn't care that Chris Rodriguez is automatic by contrast and with plenty of big play ability in his own right. But it is the way it is. And if Rodriguez is healthy enough to play this week, I don't doubt that he might get kind of a patronizing start given to him by Washington. And I don't doubt that Chris Rodriguez will bowl over the defense for his 10 or so carries they give him. But when he gets to 10 or so carries, they will give the ball to Crosky Merritt, no matter how badly he does.
Yeah, they got to play the Bill game. So Rodriguez, I believe, was practicing in full earlier this week, so it should be good to go here. If anything, I could see any maybe kind of like last ditch optimism for Crosky Merritt. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where if you didn't luck into that last week, I wouldn't count on it happening again necessarily. Do have a toss-up question for us here in the chat from our guy Henry. I will use this opportunity to show our handy dandy who should I start tool. So we got Aaron Jones or Kenny Gainwell. Let's hit that decide button after we have gone ahead and entered these players in. Kenny G, slightly ahead. It's a tough toss-up. So a worthy question there from our guy Henry. I tend to agree, though. I think Gainwell's playing well. I know that the Lions can be tough against the run, but I think that he's useful enough in the passing game also to where it's like if it's PPR, I feel good about Gainwell's projection this week, whereas Minnesota, their run game can be so hot and cold. I know Jones can get it done through the air as well, but I'm giving my lean to the computer here as well. What do you think?
Yeah, in PPR, I think it's pretty easily Gainwell, actually, because this is weird and it's not good for the Steelers offense, but he is the wide receiver 2 for the Steelers, Kenny Gainwell. And this is because Aaron Rodgers is too functionally limited at this point to throw to a true, route tree. he needs to have this stunted lower depth version of it. And it's like, we can't reach both corners. We can reach one corner and the other one's going to have to be nearer to me. And so the wide receiver kind of gets spun into the backfield and they just sort of leave a void on the edge that they hope gets replaced by, just a mass of tight ends. So that's the Steelers offense, and they cannot run it any other way right now. Kenny Gainwell's getting 6 targets every game from here.
So therein lies, I think Gainwell has actually looked pretty good this year against my expectations and against all of my Jaylen Warren interests this year. Gainwell has actually been a pretty solid pickup, I feel like, for Pittsburgh this year. We do have a quartet of tight ends that our guy Master J wants us to sift through quickly. Darren Waller, Colby Parkinson, who plays tonight, Juwan Johnson, and Oronde Gadsden. Johnson, he notes smartly that there isn't a lot of other healthy options in this Saints offense, and they are playing the Jets. I think that's definitely a fair, reason to be in on Johnson this week, but we have it ranked with Parkinson, Waller, Gadsden, and Johnson in that order. What say you?
Yeah, for me, it's between Waller and Juwan Johnson. I don't really know how to call it between the two. I guess the disclaimer there is I'm a bit of a Darren Waller truther, and Darren Waller having a game like on Monday isn't that weird to me. It kind of makes sense to me, but he also gets hurt as rapidly as pretty much anyone in the league. So I guess you might have good reason to say Johnson is the higher floor option. And I guess if Waller's ostensible appeal is like he has more upside, that would be dependent on, the quarterback play, which not to say Tyler Shuck is a seasoned veteran or whatever, but I guess we got to give him more benefit of the doubt than Quinn Ewers at the moment. So I guess I'd lean Johnson.
Okay. All right. Very good. Good to have that on the record and some differing opinions there. I think, the case for Johnson is definitely there. Moving on to the nightcap on Saturday, we've got the Packers and the Bears. Of course, if you're not watching Oregon versus James Madison at this time of the evening, the books have this one split. Some shops, FanDuel has the Bears as a 1.5 point dog. DraftKings, however, has the Packers as the 1.5 point dog on the road. Obviously, the big story coming out of Green Bay this week being Micah Parsons being out for the season. Their big sort of off-season acquisition, who had been such a big force in that front seven for them. He will be out. What does that mean for the Packers going up against this Bears team right now that seems to be rolling?
Yeah, I don't think you're sort of chasing points or whatever to sort of just look at how the Bears did last week and how they've done in general lately, and just assume that it might be more of the same. I think the conditions that have allowed the Bears to do as well as they have lately are conditions that persist in this game against the Packers, who injuries have a lot to do with it. It might even primarily be the reason why, but the Packers are wounded severely at this point, not having Michael Parsons, which is a loss that's really unlucky given how big of a loss they already incurred with Tucker Kraft's injury. Like you can only take so many hits like this and still be expected to look like the team you were supposed to be. And going to Chicago, I know there's a lot on the line. I'm sure the Packers are going to show up, but I think they are just kind of depleted in a way right now that makes them, even against worse teams than the Bears, it puts the Packers in a pretty difficult spot. So the way that the Packers can win is, I think, getting turnovers out of Caleb Williams, who, despite his issues of basically being unable to complete passes, he does tend to limit turnovers. Or, to this point, Caleb has done a good job of avoiding turnovers. So as long as that remains the case here, and as long as the Bears running game keeps rolling, which again, I think the conditions do indicate that they probably will keep running the ball well. It might not be like an easy win. It probably won't be. It might be like a last second kind of win, but I still think the Bears have pretty much most situational details to their advantage here.
So going to both of these receiving cores, both of them have been, kind of volatile week to week as far as who's going to be producing on the Packers side. Jaden Reed just comes back recently a couple weeks ago, makes his return against the Bears a couple weeks ago. And, he has 9 catches in his first 2 games back. But Christian Watson gets banged up. Not sure if he's going to be able to go or not. And then on the Bears side, they're kind of the walking wounded as well, as far as some of their younger guys, with Roma Dunze being the late scratch last week, not expected to play this week, according to reports from a rap sheet. And Luther Burden was not practicing as of Wednesday either. So does it feel like that at least stratifies, where you can go, where you can kind of direct your action if you're playing DFS this week or on this 2-game slate, where it's like, okay, well, this projects well for DJ Moore, it projects well for Jaden Reed, or there's some other cast of characters that you'd be taking a look at?
Oof, on those short slates, the questions that are the most annoying, like which Packers receiver will it be? Which arbitrary Packers receiver will be the right pick? And sometimes it's on Thanksgiving, you needed Dontavian Wicks. If you didn't pick Dontavian Wicks, you're an idiot. And it could be Wicks again. It could be, and especially if Christian Watson is out, but he was limited in practice yesterday, so I guess we'll wait and see. So was Wicks. Wicks actually did not practice initially on Wednesday, Tuesday, and then did practice Wednesday. So I guess if I had to call it, I would assume Watson and Wicks and Golden all play, and I don't know, maybe Watson is limited if he does play. Maybe he isn't limited. I think if he can, Watson will play something like 45 snaps, Dobbs, whatever, 45, 55. I still think Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks are largely caught in a zero-sum game where Jaden Reed is the general slot guy, but for some reason Wicks gets some sub packages with the slot at the expense of Reed. I'm not a fan of that. I think Reed's the player they should emphasize, but LaFleur does stuff like that, and it could be in the red zone that Wicks goes in. It could be that could be a touchdown target that goes to Wicks, even if he's only playing something like 20 snaps. So I don't know how to call those receivers. I guess Luke Musgrave is worth keeping in mind, even though he's a tight end. He's kind of hanging around. He can do some things. So I do expect Josh Jacobs to play. I'll say that. I expect him to be the usual Josh Jacobs. And it's kind of potentially shaping up to be a little bit like last year, where by the time the Packers got to the playoffs, they just had nothing left except Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs was like the only thing keeping them alive at that point. And hurt or not, he's going to show up. He's going to keep playing, I think. And on the Bears side, I guess you'd say if Odunze and Burden are out, it has to open up some amount of opportunity for Zacchaeus and I guess Colson Loveland, maybe Cole Kmet, depending on how you budget it. But I think in terms of this matchup with the Packers and the determination of the winning team in this game, it might not matter much if both Odunze and Burden are out. And I say that not because they're not good players. I think they're both really good. Odunze, I think, is already like a top 12-ish receiver, and Burden's obviously looked very good. But I don't know if Caleb Williams is at a point in his development where he can even capitalize on these players anyway. So if I'm assuming Caleb Williams can't read the defense well enough to get DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden involved to the extent that they otherwise are capable, then it doesn't really matter to me if 2 of them are out.
Yeah, and like you're also probably like a little bit incentivized to test it out on the ground. I thought they ran pretty well against the Packers in the first game, and no Parsons. So I don't know, but I'm with you in the sense that like I don't think the Bears like objectively like lose all that much off their offense. They just have to kind of like reconfigure some things, but I think they'll still be fine even if there's no Burden or Roma Dunze out there. Our guy Master throws it in there, considering the injuries to those Bears receivers. Talking about that clutch of tight ends earlier, do you think that Loveland kind of works his way into that conversation alongside, like Waller and Juwan Johnson as far as startable guys this week?
It's a tough one, and all year there's been a pretty big group of tight ends like this where it's like they're not top 6, but you could argue they're 7, or you could argue they're 15, and it's you don't really feel that convinced of either one. Loveland, though, of those 3 players, Waller, himself, Juwan Johnson, Loveland's the one who's clearly got the talent, right now. I think Waller at his peak was pretty tough to beat, but Waller is not at his peak. And Colson Loveland is very good. So we've got 4 straight weeks with Loveland getting at least 5 targets. I'd like to think we can kind of take it as a given that he'll get at least another 5 here, especially if Odunze and Burden are out. But I do, in a way, have the same concern with Loveland that I do with Darren Waller, which is that I don't know what I can take for a given from the quarterback. And I'm not expecting a big game from Caleb. So if I don't know, I think out of those 3, I actually do lean Loveland, but I can't tell if I'm like being belligerent to do that. I don't think I am, but I might be.
I think just like opportunity projection, I think probably favors Loveland. So, if you get a guy with that talent, maybe you can push him to 6, maybe even 7 targets. And, all of a sudden, you're ending up with a really nice floor and your expectations
Honestly,
for him.
I think Loveland has a really good case in this question, even if both Odunze and Burden play.
There we have it. Okay. I mean, so, and it looks like Odunze is probably not even going to. So, yeah, I feel like that sets up well for Loveland. So, yeah, I think if you're looking at any of these guys, whether it's Parkinson, Waller, Juwan Johnson, Colson Loveland, I think that there's good cases for any of them to be in your starting lineup, of course, provided that you don't have, Trey McBride or Kyle Pitts or, the God Brock Bowers. Let's see here. Before we move on to Sunday, we got a message from our friends at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 for free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. We also got a message from our friends at Blue Wire. Look at that. We're on Sunday. Good one coming in the NFC South here. We've got the Bucs and the Panthers. This one in Carolina. The Bucs 3-point favorites. Bucs, man, it feels like they've just kind of had the golden opportunity this year with the Falcons kind of failing to live up to expectations. The Panthers have obviously done well for themselves, but I think their 2 losses to the Saints kind of tell you who they really are. Yeah. But the Bucs have just not really been. I mean, like what you were saying about the Packers, where it's like you're kind of reaching that critical mass on injuries. I think the Buccaneers kind of already got there, lost a bunch of games as a result of that. They did get Mike Evans back last week, but they did still find a way to lose against the Falcons a week ago. I think the Bucs bounce back here, but the Panthers seem to be this kind of live wire team where it's like the second that you write them off this year, that's when they kind of jump up. But they have some injuries of their own. I think specifically with Ted McMillan potentially dealing with an injury. So your thoughts here?
Yeah, the Panthers, I think, are still a pretty bad team, and the extent to which the Panthers win in general, or especially the extent to which they sort of ambush these teams with these, surprise upsets that no one sees coming and no one can even, in hindsight, hardly explain. Those are all just the extent to which the league is just kind of poorly run and, mismanaged on the personnel and coaching basis both. So the Panthers, I think their strength, their real calling card is just the fact that they are the same team every week and they are somewhat unambitious as an offense. Like they're just kind of running between the tackles. Like we're running between the tackles. We'll try to think of something else, but we probably won't. And that's not a very ambitious style of offense, but it's also a consistent one. You're not as volatile as an offense that sort of opens themselves up to the risks of throwing the ball, especially, if it's a day where you get more sacks, penalties, whatever, than you expect. That can take an easy game, a game easily won, and turn it sideways to the benefit of the team like the Panthers, who don't invite those kinds of risks on themselves. So with that said, I think the problem for the Panthers here, in addition to the McMillan injury, which doesn't sound that great.
No, it was not practicing Wednesday with a foot.
Yeah, so if he's not there, that's a huge loss because he is the real deal. And as good as Jalen Coker might be, Jalen Coker is like a wide receiver 2 at most. Probably better yet fit as a wide receiver 3 or something. So without McMillan, if McMillan is not out there, if Damian Lewis ends up missing this game with the illness that he missed practice with, if Ikem Ekwonu is out with his knee injury, these are little actually they'd be big losses in what seems like, maybe not that important part of the roster, but it is that part of the offense that the Panthers build everything, the between the tackles. And then of course McMillan is pretty much the entire passing game. So if Vita Vea is kind of making it tough to run between the tackles, and it specifically is between the tackles that the Panthers tend to do their running. They do a lot of power concepts. Vita Vea is the one guy you don't want to run against in that look. You want to go off tackle. Nope. You want to create space somehow. And I just don't know if that really suits the Panthers. I think that's asking for more creativity and ambitiousness out of them than they're actually suited to taking on. So I assume the Buccaneers are going to win this. Maybe I'm dismissing the Panthers too easily, but I just think the Buccaneers are not the kind of team, not most weeks anyway. I guess last week that was insane. Obviously, I like Kyle Pitts a lot, but I don't understand how injuries at corner or not. I don't understand how Todd Bowles got pants that badly last week.
Like there were two guys. There were 2 guys on Atlanta you had to account for, and they didn't take care of either of them.
Yeah. When David Sills is beating on you, you've just done something wrong. And I don't know, maybe the Buccaneers have some ongoing issue that exposed, but I think more likely it's just Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers got slapped up really bad for 4 quarters. And if they had 2 more quarters, maybe they would have gotten it kind of turned around, but that's not how the game works.
No, it is not. So I feel better about the Bucs in this spot, or I think that they've had ample time to get over the national embarrassment on Thursday Night Football. How did you think Mike Evans looked in his return? He drew 12 targets. I think a lot busier than anyone, even his biggest proponents, optimists would have expected coming off of that long layoff.
Well, the clavicle injury is bad, and a lot of guys miss a lot more time with those than Evans did, but it shouldn't have stopped him from doing any conditioning or anything like that. So I guess it really does make sense that once he gets the clearance to go play at all, he can kind of just plug right back into his usual, barring aggravation of the injury, I guess, which is I guess my only concern at this point. If he's on the field, if he has clearance to play with that clavicle, then Evans is more or less the same guy at that point. It's not like coming back from even like Chris Godwin, I have more ongoing concerns about because of, getting a specific bone in the leg named is always bad. It's not good when they're specifying which bone in the leg it is. And yeah, I think Evans, it's pretty plug and play. Whereas with a guy like Godwin, I kind of worry, like, are his wheels not working quite right? Or it seems like Godwin, knock on wood, is doing just fine. I just mean, I don't have to worry about that with Evans. I just have to be allowed to play.
Yeah, exactly. Having the upper body injury is obviously going to, make for a smoother return to action when it comes to Evans than obviously all the lower leg stuff that Godwin's been battling through since his big injury last year with that ankle. We did have a question, tossing up Michael Pittman, Chris Godwin, and Jalen Coker. We pretty much have that dialed in as a toss up between Godwin and Coker. I think if McMillan's out, I would probably go Coker from those 3.
I'd probably go Godwin, but yeah, Coker's a totally decent player. I just think I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I assume the Buccaneers will basically show up and look like the Buccaneers that we expected them to be in this game. And I think Godwin is he's kind of a necessary part of that prophecy coming to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, he is over the last 3 weeks, 5, 8, and 5 targets. So that is at least bankable involvement. My thinking mostly is that, whatever it's going to be a lower volume passing attack for the Panthers, but I do think like the share that Coker would be larger than that of Godwin. So that's sort of my rationale there with Coker over Godwin. But again, our computers say it's pretty much a toss up between those two. And Pittman, I just feel bad for anyone who's leveraged on Indianapolis pass catchers at this stage of the season because, oh boy, we got more Phillip Rivers coming, which is as fun as it is. It's not fun if like you have fantasy interests behind it as well. So we'll get to that game. I think that's the Monday nighter, I want to say. So at least we get Phil on national TV later this week to round things off. That's it. Bills Browns. This one in Cleveland. Bills 10-point favorites on the road here. The Browns obviously just got demolished by the Bears last week. A lot of self-inflicted reasons behind that one, but the Bears played well in their own right. Bills coming off that huge comeback win over the Patriots. They've got a big one, I think, on the other side of this. I want to say the Bills play the Eagles in Week 17. So is this like potentially a trap spot where maybe we don't get as much juice out of the Bills as maybe we would hope? Or is the Browns' injury situation just such that even like a B-minus game from the Bills still results in some good fantasy production across the board?
Well, I don't know what to expect from the Bills offense in the sense that I don't know if there's going to be much lifting to do. Like, I would be surprised if the Bills had a very ambitious game plan here. I think that if I was the Bills, for instance, I would try to make this a Ray Davis game just to kind of spare some wear and tear for the guys that I really need in those high leverage spots. A game like next week, perhaps. Don't want James Cook going in at 80% next week. So if I got to give Ray Davis 15 carries in this one and win by only 6 points to do that, I would do that if I was the Bills. But if they, for some reason, want to run up the score and have a ambitious game plan here, I suppose they could do that. I think Mason Graham looks like he might be back. And if he can be more or less the player that he was when he was healthy, that might make the Browns' run defense all of a sudden become good again. I do think it's injuries that explain the fall off in the Cleveland run defense, and a guy like Graham, if he's back, maybe that changes enough that it's tough to run on them, and it turns the game into more of like an attrition based thing where it's like, okay, we just need to accumulate field position and not turn the ball over more than Shedeur Sanders does, and the fact that the other team is basically helpless otherwise should make everything else figure itself out. But I would imagine another limitation for the Bills for fantasy purposes is that they might get short fields, which sometimes is good, and it could be good in this case because you're getting closer to the end zone. Touchdowns happen with short fields. But in an offense as horizontally oriented as the Bills, those short yardage touchdowns, those short fields can go to Jackson Hawes or like Quentin Morris or something like that. It's not necessarily going to be Keon Coleman, James Cook, Dalton Kincaid. So I don't know who to call from scrimmage as being productive in this game. I guess you go with Cook just because he's kind of founded the offense from scrimmage all year. But I don't think they should need Cook, and I think they should be able to just hold on to the ball, play patiently, let Shedeur Sanders give the game away.
Which likely to happen. I think on the other side, I do think people are kind of hand-wringing on what to do with Quinshon Judkins this week because the Bills do have a pretty weak run defenses. I think it also behooves the Browns to utilize Judkins given Sanders' kind of volatility back there as a passer. I feel like it makes a lot of sense to go with Judkins, but I know the results of late haven't been great. So obviously with an important lineup decision such as this one in your fantasy semifinals, you still rolling Judkins out there, you think?
Well, the issue is, of course, that the Browns offense is bad enough that Judkins can be a good player and get a starter's workload and still not do anything useful with it. That becomes only worse in light of the injuries on the Cleveland offensive line. So one thing that Judkins might have had going for him in a different timeline is that the Browns might have had a pretty good offensive line. They might have had a quite good offensive line this year, if not for injuries. But the injuries for the second year in a row somehow have come with a vengeance for the Browns offensive line. And if guys like Jack Conklin and Joel Bitonio are out, they just go it's just straight to the toilet. The whole offense is straight to the toilet. So I don't want to count a guy like Judkins out because I do think he's absolutely the real deal. But and also this is a somewhat favorable matchup at least. But if Bitonio and if Bitonio and the other Conklin are out, I think I would try to find someone else other than Judkins this week.
I think so too. We have him ranked as RB 18 this week, but
I think that's a little high. It's an unusually bad situation that he has to deal with right now. It is anomalous, and so there's good reason to project anomalous outcome. In this case, negatively anomalous outcomes for Judkins.
Yeah, I think the more we talk about this game, the more I see a butt kicking coming for Cleveland. Sorry to use such foul language this close to the holidays. Sorry. All right, onward. We've got the Chargers and the Cowboys. Cowboys look like they're
pretty
favored
dumb
here. 2.5 points.
Yeah, they're a dumb team. We've gone over this, but if I don't know if there's any concrete reporting on his status, but if Quinnen Williams is out with his concussion, then that is a huge deal for the Chargers because I think Dallas, ridiculous as they are, their defense would be a little challenging for the Chargers in the Chargers' current state with their destroyed offensive line. The Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark combo against those guards, against that interior offensive line of the Chargers is pretty much a disaster for the Chargers if that happens. So a lot hinging on that one guy, Quinnen Williams, in my opinion. And not to say Dallas can't cause problems anyways. Like even guys like Sam Williams or whoever can probably make some noise against this Chargers offensive line. Every team that plays the Chargers just goes nuts beating on that offensive line. So I think Dallas can do that too. But I suppose the key more so comes down to whether Dak has a good game. And I don't know what dictates what kind of Dak appears in a given game. I guess, generally the higher the stakes, the better the defense, the more you worry about Dak. Also, the more you start to assume Dak will do good things is also the moment where he all of a sudden just arbitrarily starts doing bad things. So I don't know in this, I guess in this case, I would have to, it's always hubris to try to guess this, but in this case, I think the Cowboys are low enough and have disappointed people badly enough, and people are kind of like pissed off at them again, and like their fans are probably turning on them a little bit, that maybe it's good Dak time because it's kind of like it's probably too late to make a difference in the playoff. The Eagles are probably going to take the stupid division. The Cowboys will probably make a little bit of a rally that amounts to nothing, trying to push for the title and not getting a wild card spot otherwise. And if Dak had a big game here, it would be a way for him to have a big game in a way that doesn't affect the playoff picture that much. And I think that's when we have to suspect like maybe this is a good Dak day. But safe to say, it would help a lot if they could get guys, as far as winning the game goes for Dallas, getting guys like Quinnen Williams and Deron Bland into practice would make a difference.
Yeah, Williams was, like you're alluding to, not practicing on Wednesday, so definitely going to have to keep an eye on that because, then it becomes this sort of pillow fight, right, where you have a weakened Dallas defense going up against a Chargers offensive line that's, completely patched together. They can't really get much push as far as the ground game is concerned. It feels like Justin Herbert is just taking a beating every single week.
Yeah.
It's I mean, that line is just completely in tatters. You talking about like alternate timelines. Like I would like to see, or I would have liked to see what the Chargers looked like this year if both Slater and Alt were good to go for this entire season. But as such, not really the case. So I guess with that in mind, where are you with starting someone like a Herbert this week, where over the course of this season, you see that your quarterback has the Cowboys on the schedule, you're locking them into your lineup. Herbert, does he kind of fall in like the 10 to 15 range for you, like quarterback wise this week?
I don't know. If it wasn't for the broken left hand and if it wasn't for this offensive line looking so incredibly bad, I would more easily see how Herbert could have a big game here. But I'm worried that even if Deron Bland and Quillian Williams are both out, the Chargers' offensive line is so profoundly bad that they can't really throw the ball that much, just as like a constant rule, no matter who they're playing against. Like the coverage may very well be poor, and the Chargers receivers might be getting open, but if Justin Herbert only has maybe 1.5 seconds to throw the ball every time, you just can't really do that. You have to reduce the pass attempt volume to more structured setups like play action, where you've got the blitz pickup guy designated and you can kind of buy Herbert some space to set up the throw. But even doing those kinds of setups usually comes at the expense of running fewer route runners. So you have to be, I think, selective with your shots. If you're the Chargers, you have to make sure that when you do expose Herbert to the defense, it's for a good reason, i.e. you've got good reason to believe he's going to make a big play or get you some points in doing so. And short of that, it's like, I think the Chargers just kind of have to go into a shell and try to just lean on running volume and hope that the running backs kind of just wear out the defense. I don't know what realistically else they can do at the moment.
I don't either. So that therein lies my concerns for Herbert. I guess I don't know how many rosters are constructed this way where you would have to make this particular call, but looking at where Herbert is in our tier of rankings, like him or Sam Darnold for this week, like I'd probably go Herbert and just kind of like hold my nose and hope, because
fair enough.
I'm worried that
Herbert will
Darnold has
run
a really bad night.
I guess we gotta mention that about Herbert is like he can't throw the ball, but he's capable of running for upwards of 50 yards in a game. So there's something to consider there, I guess.
Yes, but for everyone's knowledge, like we have Kirk Cousins ranked ahead of Herbert for this week. Just so I mean that just kind of tells you it's not an indictment on Herbert. It's more so just the team context, really kind of bringing down that fantasy ceiling for Justin Herbert. Speaking of fantasy ceilings, we got just a very lofty one in this next game. We've got the Saints and the Jets, baby. Over under of 40.5. More Brady Cook time for the Jets. And the Saints, feels like they're starting to believe in Tyler Shuck a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see. I think Shuck has played admirably enough, but I always look at the broader sample. I know that recent results matter, and sometimes they matter more than the games before them, but sometimes they don't. And in Shuck's season-long numbers, I see nothing clearly good. If he were 21 or 22 or 23 instead of 26, I could more easily kind of look sideways and say, like, yeah, if he has this or that turn for the better, I could see a starter here, but I can't really make that kind of generous interpretation here. I kind of just see backup caliber numbers. Now, if Shuck over these next 3 games finishes strongly enough that the broader sample starts to look more specifically like the last week and 2 weeks ago against the Dolphins, if the whole sample starts to look like that quality, as opposed to the Buccaneers games in which he did poorly in both of them, with the exception of the long touchdown runs, and maybe the rushing that Shuck has done lately is something they can kind of lean on and leverage more going forward. Certainly he has the wheels to do it. That runs a low 4.6, so that's there for them. But I just think with the sample being this small and with the schedule that he's played generally being quite easy, all I'm really willing to say in the meantime is, well, at least he looks better than Rattler, but that doesn't really mean that much.
No, it just means that you're better than Spencer Rattler. Does that mean that the team's going to build around you? TBD. But I do think that is more for offseason. But I think the quarterback class is crappy enough to where the Saints can see what they got.
I would much rather, even as a sort of Chuck skeptic, I would much rather the Saints go into next year with him as a starter than sort of spending whatever pick in the first round on just default quarterback. Like so many teams are so many organizations are sold on this idea of like, if you need a quarterback in the first round, you take the top ranked quarterback who's there and you just don't think about it. And that line of thinking needs to be, driven out of the league with torches, pitchforks.
Well, I think maybe with a few more years of it, people will kind of snap out of it. But yeah, for now, the quarterbacks are just going to always be artificially inflated in their first round.
Like were people talking about that Alabama quarterback as being like a first round pick as recently as a couple weeks ago?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Like I took like 10 seconds of looking at him the other day and I'm like, no way. What are these people? And I know he had a bad game recently that kind of got people sobered up again against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was shocked to look at that profile of his and see people were talking about him as like a top 10 pick just a few days before that. It was crazy. People lost their friggin' minds.
Yeah, like I think he's a worse prospect than Mac Jones was.
Oh God, yes. Like I wouldn't take that. Is it Simpson? Is that his name? I wouldn't take him in the first 4 rounds.
Simpson. So yeah, he'll play Friday night against Oklahoma. He did really bad against Oklahoma the first time. So see how that works out for the Tide. But as far as other fantasy interests from this game, we talked about Juwan Johnson a decent bit earlier. If you missed it, it does feel like with the Saints kind of shorthandedness offensively, options targets should be kind of concentrated to Chris Olave and to Juwan Johnson, so you can feel good about that. The Jets defense obviously starting to look like a Jets defense that traded away its best players. That Trevor Lawrence game last week was absolutely bananas. I guess on the Jets side, if you're hanging on to anybody, I think it'd probably only be Breece Hall. Like he's startable, and then nothing else really. Are we done with A.D. Mitchell for now?
I think Adonai Mitchell is, it's a very belligerent kind of fantasy asset, but it's, I think, a real one at the moment because he's getting targets, getting air yardage, and so much of both that the fact that he might catch as little as 40% of his targets in the game doesn't even really matter that much at the moment. Like the Jets they're just sort of chucking it at Mitchell because they can't run serious plays.
Yeah, that's about all that they are capable of doing right now. Let's get on to another Super Bowl here. We've got the Vikings and the Giants. This one in the Meadowlands. We got the Vikings 2.5 or 3 point favorites going to the Giants.
Yeah, I guess JJ McCarthy looked better against the Cowboys than he had against other teams, but it's still tough, in my opinion, to take much from it. It was yet another case, as all the cases have been, where McCarthy was limited to a low pass attempt volume. The rushing ability is real, and some of the throws that he made were good, but until you see the Vikings willingly throw the ball 30 or more times in a game, and you see McCarthy basically hold up with that, I think until then we have reason to assume that he needs an extremely sheltered game plan, and if he has to go from sort of a scripted fixed read kind of play calling sequence to one where he has to grind through like a sort of, how to say this, like a game that is both that is competitive and not yet finalized, a game that it could turn either way in those crucial moments. Like, can he play quarterback then? Can he drop back and go through his reads and throw in that situation and keep it all together? I don't think so. Maybe he'll get there soon. Maybe he already got there and last week marked it. I don't know. But until there's a little more clarity, I am kind of assuming the Vikings offense is not that serious and they could still win this game. I do think if the Vikings just kind of go to the ground in this game, if Jordan Mason gets 15 carries, I think the Vikings win. But if they need their passing offense to get them over some initial obstacle, I think they might find themselves in a difficult spot. I just don't know how much I can expect of the Giants offense on the other side to make a true game of it. It might be a game where JJ McCarthy could play badly and the Vikings still win just because like maybe it's just a kind of a bad spot for Jackson Dart against the Brian Flores defense.
Yeah, I'm a Dart absolutist. I'm a big fan of his. He's crazy. I don't know how long it's going to last. He's sort of like the quarterback version of Scattaboo, but I do think facing a Flores defense is problematic for him, whereas McCarthy kind of gets to play with training wheels again for like the third straight week. Like I'm looking at McCarthy's player page, and these are, kind of just basic blank rankings here, but going up against Washington, like they were the 27th ranked team as far as fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. Dallas, unsurprisingly, 32nd, but the Giants are 26th. So like it seems like at the very least McCarthy can take advantage of soft matchups. I don't know if it lasts
up to like 22 pass attempts. Okay. If he gets any more exposure than that, he still kind of just goes off the rails big time. But yeah, the schedule is favorable, and I think the Vikings could win this game if they did the Mac Jones in Buffalo or whatever, that one game where the Patriots threw one pass.
And just that was awesome.
That's what the Vikings should do basically every week.
I mean,
sorry, Justin Jefferson and company.
I know, right?
Like blocking.
That was a lot of best ball teams of mine were needing just like some semblance of a pulse from Justin Jefferson, and like it wouldn't have surprised me to see the Jefferson stat line last week based on recent numbers, but the Vikings also scoring 30 plus points and Jefferson not getting anything. That's what is going to linger with me for I think quite some time. That's going to hurt. But I think that's about all we got as far as this Vikings Giants game is concerned. Whew. Next up, a Chiefs game that has a total in the 30s. What a world that we're living in. The eliminated Kansas City Chiefs with no Patrick Mahomes will be going to Nashville to face the Titans. Chiefs still getting some favoritism from the books, 3-point favorites in this one against the Titans. Boy, I mean, the Chiefs are like, I guess it's more of like soft science type of question, but like what level of focus and like drive are they going to be playing with in this spot? And like, are we able to like actually use those thoughts to drive any of our fantasy decisions this week? Because we've never seen the Chiefs in this spot.
Yeah, I don't know. Gardner Minshew didn't look that great last week, so it's kind of funny to me that Andy Reid has this kind of this aesthetic type of a backup quarterback that he seems to like a lot. In Philadelphia, it was Coy Detmer. I don't know if you remember that guy, the neck bearded quarterback from Colorado, I think. Gardner Minshew has basically turned into him, anamorphed into Coy Detmer. Like now he has the neck beard, and he kind of just looks like he's like I don't know, like got a muskrat on him or something. Like that's who's leading the Chiefs now, and it looks bad. It's not just, I don't just mean the neck beard. I mean the way Minshew's playing quarterback was bad, and I don't know how, if you're the Chiefs, you get yourself honestly, bought. If you're Chris Jones, at least, if you're Travis Kelce, I don't know how you get earnestly bought into the game. If you're a backup or a guy is, a prospect who's getting playing time and you're just happy to be out there, like those players will play hard, sure, and that's most of them. But we've seen Chris Jones kind of take off plays in games that mattered,
Yeah.
and it's like, how is that guy going to truly convince himself that he cares about this game that 100% doesn't matter? And you can't even do like we're doing it for Pat kind of thing. It's like, we're doing it for Gardner Minshew, this guy that we just he just like crawled out of the river like this and just plays quarterback for us. It's not good.
I mean, I think Minshew did famously live in a van down by several rivers for an off season a couple of years ago.
He was raised by muskrats.
Yes, I mean that's
why he's growing. That's becoming one.
He cracks me up, but at the same time, I don't think that this bodes well for the Chiefs. And then additionally, on top of that, Rashee Rice not practicing still due to being in the concussion protocol. We'll see what Friday's injury report looks like for him. And Tyquan Thornton also in the concussion protocol. So yeah, pretty rough outlook, I think, for the Chiefs. I think there's a good reason why this game has a total this low. Anything to look at on the Titans side?
I hope Shamir DK can get back on that all yardage
Me too.
record. It seems like he's been getting the pinch lately. Like they haven't been kicking to him as much, which is cowardly and unethical. You should
That's right.
Just let the Titans get their maybe 10 points that they would get as a result of DK scoring another touchdown and a punt return. Just be honorable. Do the right thing.
Preach. And then next up to close the 1 o'clock window, kind of a fun one for fantasy. I think that a lot of my DFS interests will be centered on this one. And I'm like in some season long leagues that I'm eliminated in, I don't think I'm really messing up with the mojo for anybody, but I scooped up Quinn Ewers just to start it as a bit. So this is Dolphins versus Bengals. Bengals 4-point favorites here again. If you've been living under a rock this week, you may not know that Tua officially benched, and they will go with the rookie out of Texas and Quinn Ewers. So my thinking is essentially that Ewers is more talented than what his draft stock would imply, I think. And additionally, the bar's been set so low by the way that Tua's played for most of this season to where it's I don't feel like you need to factor in some sort of big discount on or downward projection for this Dolphins offense this week.
Yeah, Tua was just abominable, and I don't really understand how he got quite so bad. Maybe, to be fair to him, it had a little to do with the hip injury. The first, the one that started this all. Maybe if that hadn't happened, Tua would have been a fundamentally different player. But it's been crazy how it's felt for 2.5 years or whatever straight of just the walls closing in, and you sort of, or at least I couldn't believe how long it had felt that way. It's this feeling of just mounting claustrophobia getting worse and worse and worse, and nothing changing except the fact that it's getting worse and worse and worse. And it should strike someone by now. This guy would have been benched if not for this horrific contract. He would have been benched years ago if not for this horrific contract. So why do these contracts keep getting issued if that's what keeps happening? Why do we give contracts that are so big to players that are so bad that you just cannot win with them, but then you won't bench them because of the contract? That's just, I can't believe it. But you're right. Tua was so bad that Quinn Ewers could also be bad, and we wouldn't notice any meaningful difference. There's even a chance that Ewers is, believe it or not, better than Tua. And again, that's more the fact that Tua is so low as a starting point. It's not like I'm trying to put unfair expectations on Quinn Ewers. If Quinn Ewers completes 21 of 28 passes for 220 yards and a touchdown, that would be probably an improvement over Tua, who had turned into a turnover machine this year in particular. So, I'd like to believe for everybody, I guess, I'd like to believe for Ewers, I'd like to believe for McDaniel that this will work. It'd be fun if, Jalen Waddle and Darren Waller could kind of put up some numbers here. They're certainly capable of it. But yeah, it's not to say it's an easy road ahead for the Dolphins, but ending this farce was, painful as it is, it's a necessary step one, and they were never going to win anything with Tua. It was just incredible how bad he was.
So on that note, Matt Harmon, I think, put this pretty well on Twitter yesterday. He said almost no team has the stones to leave the faux comfort of quarterback purgatory and willingly walk into quarterback wilderness. So I think that that's like a direct like comment on, you know, these teams who are kind of up against it time wise with their rookie quarterbacks, and like the quarterback has shown kind of enough to where they are absolutely going to talk themselves into the idea of them continuing to get better, progress always linear type of thing. But in reality, you know, it's just bad contracts for Tua and for like Kyler Murray and stuff like that. And these teams just kind of end up getting
it's
stuck.
The industry assumption. It's just taken as a given. You have to give that contract out. You just gotta do it.
And quarterbacks, like they can't take anything less than setting the new market, no matter like where they are in the actual pecking order. It's like if you're up for the contract before anyone else, or if you're next in line, basically you get to reset the market. It's nuts.
You know, it's not to be pedantic. What Matt said is true, but I think it's a little generous in this case to call it purgatory. I think the Dolphins have been in unambiguous quarterback hell for years. Purgatory is more like where the Rams were with Jared Goff, and then they went to Matt Stafford, you know? But yeah, it's as the industry expectation, the assumption, the conventional practice is you just stay in quarterback hell. That's smart. You should stay in quarterback hell because the only dumb thing you could ever do is not spend on a quarterback. That's what dumb people do. Smart people sit in quarterback hell and pay a ton of money for the privilege.
So yeah, it's certainly something that. And lastly, I think the Bengals defense more in line with what we've seen. I know that they raised up against the Ravens and against the Bills in like the first half of that game, but I think last week lets you know where they actually are. So it's a soft landing spot for viewers to get started. So I still feel good about my Dolphins this week. On the Bengals side of things, I know that their season ended last week, but I think you have to feel good about their offensive projection this week as well. I don't think that they're in shut it down mode or anything. I think they've still got, you know, nothing actual to play for, but they need something to feel good about from this season that has otherwise been, you know, pretty abysmal for them. So I think that they're gonna. I think I like them to cover here, but I think more than anything, I'm seeing some points in this one. Let's get on over to the afternoon window, but quickly, we've got a couple messages here for you. We've got one from our friends at Prosper Trading. Every weekend, millions bet on sports, hoping to beat the odds. But here's the truth: the house always wins. But with trading, you're not betting, you're building. At Prosper Trading Academy, we give you the tools, the education, and the live guidance to actually create an edge. You can control risk, compound your wins, and trade alongside real pros every single day. Stop gambling on games you can't control. Start trading the markets that you can. Visit prospertrading.com/ROTO today and take your shot at real financial growth. We also got a message from our friends over at Playoff Blitz. All right, so check this out. You're like us and you hate when your fantasy season ends before the real football gets good. You've got to try playoffblitz.com. It's fantasy football built for the NFL playoffs. No draft, no waivers, no sweat. Members just pick a lineup each week from the playoff teams. You can only use each player once. It's an interesting wrinkle there. So once you start a player, you lose them. That's where the strategy kicks in. Remember, no need to hold a draft. Just create a league and invite your friends. Starting the league is super easy. It just takes less than a minute, and you're all set from wildcard weekend to the Super Bowl. PlayoffBlitz.com is your home for playoff fantasy football. Leagues are $79, and you can invite as many people as you like. Run an office pool, invite league mates from your regular season leagues, or even your grandma's bingo league. My grandma played bridge and mahjong. Join today at playoffblitz.com, where fantasy football meets the Super Bowl. Enter promo code ROTOWIRE for a discount on your league today. Afternoon slate, lead things off. Falcons, Cardinals. Our guy Doomy in the chat wants to know our thoughts on Jacoby Brissett, not for this week, but for next year. He's obviously kind of built an interesting case for himself. Does he profile as someone that a team would like take as a bridge starter. I feel like that's probably kind of where he lands right now. More I'd say he's more bridge starter than back up to a kind of teetering quarterback is sort of what how I view it. So if like a team is taking one of these quarterbacks in the draft this year, maybe you want to get Brissett as a safety blanket to start the season. But I don't know if we're going to get the same type of offensive conditions that Brissett is enjoying with Arizona, where they're just like, yeah, dude, we're not trying to win. You just throw it 40 times and we're pretty happy. So I don't know if we're going to get that ever again. Like this has just been sort of like the Flacco Browns experience on steroids, basically. But I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know what to fairly expect for like Brissett's market, but I know if I was running one of these other crap teams, or including even the Cardinals, I guess, like because they're going to run out Kyler Murray, so why not the Cardinals keep Brissett as a starter? I don't understand the season that Brissett has had at all.
It's awesome.
That he's turned into this kind of like air raid figure of all things is bizarre because he's always been a low pass attempt volume quarterback. Even in college, they would only throw the ball like 25 times a game. He'd throw it 25 times, run it 10 times a game. And in the NFL, he wasn't running it 10 times a game. It was just pretty much the 25 pass attempts per game part. And there were some points with the Colts, especially, that I thought Brissett was just abysmal. But he at the very least seems to be a different player now, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes even years and years it'll take for a player to go from bad to just good, and then there's no obvious reason why. That doesn't happen often, but it does every so often, and maybe Brissett's just the next case of that. So if he can be this quarterback this 40 pass attempt quarterback, that changes so much the understanding of who Brissett even is as a quarterback, that I have to believe the Cardinals and other teams will have interest in him as a starter. It wouldn't be that shocking if he kind of got snubbed. Certainly the league is fallible. They make bad decisions all the time. Certainly some teams that should have an interest in a guy like Brissett will probably gas themselves up instead on spending a first round pick on a quarterback who has no business being drafted, let alone in the first round. But if you're a smart team, I think you have interest in Brissett, especially if you have the Vikings should have an interest. The Cardinals should, especially in the absence of another plan, they should have an interest.
I think the Steelers should.
Yeah, the Steelers should. So, yeah, I guess, thinking through it more, I kind of expect Brissett to get I assume he's on a 1-year deal. I better look that up. No, he was on a 2-year deal. Okay, he's starting next year.
So we get this back next year. Beautiful. Okay. All right.
He's got to hold out, though. He needs to get a raise before.
The price of the brick has absolutely gone up, and if he does get moved, I would just hope it's not the Raiders or the Jets, because those are like, you got to like salt the earth and start over type of teams before a quarterback can be good there again, unfortunately. As it pertains to this game, we got a nice total here, 47.5, 48.5 over at DraftKings. Obviously, the big story of last week was the Falcons and with Kyle Pitts, he's been just cooking. Obviously, I think he was.
Is he good? Was that hard to understand? Was that elusive somehow to Zach Robinson, that if you perhaps throw the ball to Kyle Pitts, it might be better than throwing the ball to Casey Washington or whatever?
But do they do something stupid where if Drake London is back this week, they kind of gear back the target share, or is this just like so obvious that even Zach Robinson can figure this out?
I mean, the problem with Zach Robinson is he's either, or maybe some combination of a button masher who just doesn't know what he's doing and is trying random things, or a coach who sort of just learned a system. And Cliff Kingsbury with Arizona is a really great example of this. Learned a system, and in that case, it was the Mike Leach system, and he knew that playbook, but he didn't know how to wield it. Like he possessed the playbook and the play calls that it contained, but unlike Mike Leach, Cliff Kingsbury didn't have the dynamic understanding and like practical grasp of it to kind of truly wield it and utilize it and improvise and adjust and counter adjust. And I think Zach Robinson got into the NFL with, I don't even remember who it was, some iteration of the McVay stuff, I guess, the Shanahan tree. And I think he learned the test answers over the course of the years. You know, he's like, well, you got to do this in this situation, this kind of personnel, this down and distance, this kind of personnel. But he was kind of just reciting answers that he was told were correct over the years. And it's not so much that he had an innate, dynamic understanding of how to free up Kyle Pitts. It really might be the case that Robinson simply moved over Pitts to a different part of, let's say the London slack in the offense. And maybe that's as simple as what it was. Maybe it wasn't that Robinson had a new insight on how to use Pitts. But last year they were hostile to Pitts. There's no other word for it. They played Ray McLeod 900 plus snaps. They gave Charlie Werner sometimes more snaps in games than they gave to Kyle Pitts. It's like, look, even if you don't think Kyle Pitts is a real tight end, which let's just say he isn't, I don't care. Even if he's not a real blocker like Charlie Werner, get McLeod off the field and put Pitts on that spot. Like, how do you not do that? That's an example. Like that slot receiver rep was what Robinson learned as this is what you do for this situation. And you got to have a slot receiver. So if you have Kyle Pitts and Ray McLeod, you got to go with McLeod. Like that's the kind of track that reductive, like algorithmic almost thinking that Robinson might be stuck with. And if he has to figure out on his own how to make Pitts and London coexist, then it's fair to worry that he just doesn't have it.
Yeah, that's that. What you're drawing up there reminds me of the scene in Animal House where they steal the answers to the wrong test. So all the guys in Animal House are Zach Robinson's brain.
They got the answers that said Ray McLeod.
Yeah, it's like, dang it, wrong test.
Like, the right answer was Kyle Pitts. How did you get that wrong?
So ultimately, I do think that you're still starting Pitts this week. I think he's top 5.
Yeah.
It's top 5 play this week.
Look, Pitts he's the real deal. There was nothing fake about what happened last week. That's who Pitts is. He is the guy from his rookie year. Everything in between is just nonsense, garbage.
And then on the other side, we have another potential big return that could kind of change the fantasy interests of Michael Wilson in this case. Marvin Harrison looks like he is trending towards maybe playing. He's dealing with that heel issue, limit at Wednesday's practice. So again, we'll have to keep an eye on Friday, but let's assume that he plays. What does that do to you or do to your level of interest in Michael Wilson this week? I kind of still feel like there's going to be enough targets to go around to where everybody is fine.
Yeah, it doesn't help, I suppose, but I'm not convinced that one game, that Buccaneers game, so let's see, 37 snaps for Harrison in that game and 57 for Wilson in that game. Granted, yes, Harrison clearly took up some valuable usage in that game and perhaps at the expense of Wilson, but that's a small sample, and I don't think you can take the per game pass attempt volume that the Cardinals have shown, which is basically 40 or more, with few exceptions. You can't project 40 or more pass attempts in this game without projecting something like at least 8 to Wilson. It would probably be something like 12 to 14 for McBride. 8 to 12 for Harrison. There's still a ton of slack left at that point. There's Xavier Weaver and Jalen Brooks next on the depth chart. That is wild. That's crazy to have just a list of just non-NFL players from wide receiver 3 onward in your depth chart, and that's what the Cardinals have right now. So I would probably plan on starting Wilson if I had him. Not a must start, I suppose, but certainly not a must bench, and I'm not going to make Harrison the reason I bench him.
No, I don't think so either. So I think you're still starting him, but maybe, whereas he was like a fringe wide receiver 1 for you the last few weeks, I think it probably looks a little bit more like a wide receiver 2 type of deal for when it comes to Wilson. Let's go to Broncos Jaguars. Got a few more games here. I know we're running a little bit long, but it's okay. We've got Broncos 3-point favorites, Jaguars coming off of an insane game offensively for them, but the Jaguars, the Broncos also really impressive stuff from them against the Packers last week.
Yeah, Bo Nix had a really good game against the Packers. I'm skeptical that he could do it twice in a row, but I was also skeptical that he could do it once. So maybe Bo Nix is in the process of turning a corner, becoming a better version of himself. Certainly, if he can play against the Jaguars like he did against the Packers, that would make the Broncos the pretty safe favorite because as cool as it was to see Trevor Lawrence's big game last week, I'm not assuming he carries that into a game against the Denver defense. I think the Jaguars offense probably gets quite a haircut with that change in opponents. Yeah. Whereas Denver is, they're just kind of at the level that they're at. I more so want to just say we were right about Travis Etienne. We have always been right about Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne haters are in hell right now. They can't believe it. But we can. We told you. That's why we can believe it. But yeah, I don't really know who's going to win this game. I don't care. Just ETN 2025.
More of that, please. Yeah, I had some DFS lineups with ETN and McBride last week, but I didn't get like the rest of the card correct, unfortunately. But at least I got those ones. I guess last lingering thing when it comes to the Broncos, like, are we starting to see some level of like predictability / reliability when it comes to their target rotation? Like, do we feel like we can feel okay about a Troy Franklin going forward, or is it still like Cortland Sutton and then question mark every single week?
Well, when Franklin's out there, we can't even take the Sutton part for a given because Bo Nix just loves throwing to Franklin. To Franklin's credit, that was probably the best game of his career against the Packers. And if he's going to put up numbers that clean, I don't have any criticisms of him anymore. However, Pat Bryant was definitely encroaching on that slot receiver role before he got hurt. Like he might have even been able to interpret it as he displaced Franklin. So with Bryant back, I assume Franklin's kind of at best taking a bit like a splitting the difference between his playing time before Bryant's emergence and the playing time he had last week. I think, they're probably going to split snaps in a way that probably annoys people.
Yeah, that's my concern as well. But maybe I don't know if someone is going to like win out definitively for our purposes this year, but we'll see what's up next year. Both obviously young into their rookie contracts. We got Steelers Lions next. Lions 6.5-point favorites. This one in Detroit. I got some questions about the Lions to where I'm not sure if I'm liking them to cover a touchdown here.
Fair enough. I have various concerns about them, and it's safe to say they are not they're not the Lions team of recent years. They're a compromised version of that. But I guess I just I would be pretty disappointed in the Lions defense if they made Aaron Rodgers look good here. I just think it's such an unserious offense that the Steelers have. We were way back early in the show talking about Kenny Gainwell. It's crazy to me that they've created this kind of almost like a crutch version of a receiver. Like in terms of how you structure the offense, it's like putting a crutch in the backfield for Rodgers to lean on because he needs like this quarterback equivalent of a walker. And that's what Kenny Gainwell's repositioned role is. It's like you're the walker. You every time he trips, you pick him up. That's why we have you so close to him instead of like a real receiver running routes downfield. So if the Lions lose to a quarterback who's so structurally limited as that would be quite a descent. That would be quite a collapse for the Lions. So Grant, I know you said cover specifically. I think if Jared Goff is having a good game, more or less, I think the Lions cover pretty easily because I think if Goff has a bad game, the Lions still, I think, can win. But Rodgers needing to answer to any significant extent pretty much buries Pittsburgh. They just sink, sinkhole style right there.
Did you see the PFT commenter stat that he pulled up about?
No.
What? Oh my God. So the Steelers famously like haven't lost at home on Monday night in like a generation, but like the combined win percentage of the teams they've played on Monday Night Football it's like 40%. They always get these like cupcakes on Monday Night Football. So last week, no exception. I mean, what a gift to be a Northern team playing against the Dolphins in December.
Tua's last start doesn't get any easier than that.
Nope, certainly not. Next up, we got the Raiders and the Texans. Texans huge favorites here. I'd say lay the wood, honestly. I think the Texans are rolling right now, and the Raiders are, like I said earlier, like they're just taking the game checks and trying to get out of there as quick as they can.
Also, Jawar Jordan,
Now.
He's not really a starter or even a serious prospect in my opinion, but he does show the what would you call it, the like the pitfall of a Woody Marks type in fantasy, which is that Woody Marks as a pure runner doesn't grade high at all. He grades as a backup, as a pure runner. Jawar Jordan, barely roster worthy, backup, almost no doubt at all. But as a pure runner, Jordan is better than Marks, and Houston needs a pure runner right now. I would have thought it would be easy for them to just use Woody Marks as a pass catching type, use him like the Chiefs use Jerick McKinnon. But for some reason, they've been like, no, not so much on the pass catching stuff. We want him to run between the tackles 25 times. That doesn't really suit Marks, and it opens the door to someone like Jordan, who you especially wonder about his longevity and whether he has kind of like the tools, the athletic traits to hold up over further exposure. But in terms of skill set, Jawar Jordan is plenty good, again, especially as a pure runner. I mean, he's really productive at Louisville. Just one of those guys you would call more skilled than talented.
I remember liking Jordan as a prospect, and did he go undrafted?
He was either 7th or undrafted, but yeah, he was really productive, but he tested poorly, and he's one of those guys who's kind of not heavy but not fast, kind of gets by on motor and processing rather than athleticism.
So this is like a throwback, but I feel like in the pre-Bijan Robinson era Falcons, I was like, there's a way that Jawar Jordan could do something. I was wrong, but hey, never wrong, just early, obviously. And maybe this.
I don't see a huge difference between someone like Jordan and someone like Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt or something. Like there's no reason why Jordan can't keep producing with opportunity as a runner, especially against a team like the Raiders.
And it started to look like Marks, as much as I liked him as a prospect, it seems like he's always getting dinged up during games. It's like almost already become like a meme on fantasy Twitter about how many season-ending injuries Marks has had, but like comes back like a couple series later. So I don't know. But beyond that, I think that if you're throwing a lot of Texans out there, I think you're feeling pretty good about it this week. And I think I would start Stroud. I think they want to continue kind of having a bit of offensive momentum here as we get to the playoff push. Because I think that's the big question for this Texans team as far as how high they can go. I think the defense is championship level. So if the offense can kind of start to look like it did a couple of years ago here down the stretch, the Texans get pretty dangerous. Sunday night game, we got the Ravens 2.5-point favorites against the Patriots.
Yeah, I'll take the Patriots to win. I don't think they did anything all that wrong against the Bills. It's just, even the better team of two will struggle to win more than 6 times out of 10. And maybe that was just one of the 4 for the Patriots there, even if they're the better team than the Bills. In any case, I don't trust the Ravens enough in any regard in particular to kind of to expect anything in particular, or certainly not anything particularly good. Like it's easy for me to imagine healthy Lamar Jackson and a well-run version of this team making, a serious run at the AFC, but I don't know what to make of the whole team. Like it seems to me like there might be a little bit of rot on the inside that is affecting their preparation and their game day play. So I see the Patriots, by contrast, as a team that knows what it's doing and has clarity of vision, and I think that means a lot. I think that that's the kind of thing that gets you through difficult stretches. So even if the loss to the Bills marked some sort of challenge for the Patriots, I think they're the kind of team that's prepared to take punches and get back up right away. So I'll take the Patriots to win, even if a lot of the reasoning is like I just kind of don't trust Lamar's health and don't trust the Ravens to be fully locked in the way they should be.
I feel like Lamar has looked better health-wise the last 2 weeks in particular, but I think the offensive line looks really bad in pass block right now.
Yeah, Falele, good in theory, cool theory, I guess, but the guy plays. He moves too much like a 400-pounder. You know, it's cool that he's like 6'8", 400, but only if you don't actually move and look like that. So if you can't get your hands on blitzers running between the guard and the tackle, it's like, what is the 6'8" part even doing anymore?
It's not doing much. There's plenty of film out there on Ravens Twitter of Falele just blocking air as a free rusher is sacking Lamar Jackson once again. So I think an interesting setup in this one will be, you know, how well the Ravens can run on the Patriots. They've obviously been really tough against the run this year. And then if that run game gets stopped, you know, can this Ravens passing game actually get going? Because we haven't really seen that since like the Dolphins game. And that was a while ago at this point. Rounding it out, we've got the 49ers going to Indy. Niners 6-point favorites against the Fightin' Phil Rivers.
Yes. I don't know what to say. It's kind of silly, this whole thing, but I will take the 49ers to cover. I understand that the Colts are not joking around. I understand that Chris Ballard does not find any of this funny, but it's pretty funny. And
he's wearing a clown costume and he's like, what are you laughing at?
Yeah, he's like so delusionally bought in because they went all in with, you know, trading for Sauce Gardner and like pitching the Daniel Jones future, and like he's just like so pot committed at the point that he just has to stay delusional, and he's like, wait, we've got Phillip Rivers, we're fine. He's a Hall of Famer. We really like our chances. I don't know how they're supposed to be a serious team right now. So I think if anything, that game with the Seahawks being as close as it was a borderline miracle. Probably the kind of thing that happens when you're they had a little bit of like a berserk effect, probably like they were kind of like doing their rally for the last final fight, and now I think they're probably worn out. They used it up, and now the 49ers are just like a better team that can move the ball easily against them.
Yeah, I think we've seen that happen before where, you know, a quarterback injury happens, a new guy comes in the first week, it goes okay. Then reality kind of sets
that defense,
in
especially
thereafter.
though, the Colts defense right now, without Gardner, without Ward, without Buckner, it's just straight up bad. And they definitely overachieved last week, and there's no way they overachieve against, you know, the Shanahan offense.
Last question for you, and this is more of like a general one. Do you think the 49ers are actually good? Because they're sort of like the Patriots of the NFC in the sense that they've played like the cakest schedule imaginable.
I think they are not that good. It's just they have very good excuses for not being better. You know, the injuries that the 49ers have faced this year is just absurd.
Sure.
Losing Warner, Bosa, and then Williams too. It's close to unthinkable. So they have a defense in particular that's only of rebuilding quality, and then on offense too, it's like everything's hanging on by a thread. You know, Brock Purdy's toe might or might not be better. We don't really know. Christian McCaffrey's got something kind of going on now. The 49ers are just they're a well-run team that has had really bad luck, and so they kind of float to the, you know, top of the league record category because so many teams are poorly run. But if the rest of the league were run as well as the 49ers are, then the number of injuries that the 49ers have incurred would have taken them much lower in the rankings than they are right now, which particularly with the Rams and the Seahawks having the records they do, I don't understand how the 49ers have a record as good as what they have either.
No, I think depending on what happens tonight, they still have a chance to win the division and even get the 1 seed in the NFC, as crazy as that sounds. But that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure that you tune in for Friday's show. I know I will be tuning in. I got eliminated in a bunch of leagues, so I need some DFS help this week to cure what ails me. And Scott Genstad, Ryan Belangi, they will do that. So check that in your podcast feeds on Friday as well, going into the weekend. that's going to do it for us here. Big thanks to our sponsors over at Playoff Blitz, over at Dabble, over at Prosper Trading, and over at Blue Wire. Be sure also, if you're listening to us, if you haven't already subscribed to RotoWire, give us a shot. Get 15% off any subscription. Go to rotowire.com. Use the code YouTube15. Helps us out, helps you out, helps you get over the hump and win your fantasy championships. All of our stuff available to you. If you just sign up, use that code YouTube15. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.